Data is the foundation of artificial intelligence. In a time of converging technologies, are we squeezing every last drop of value out of our organization's data? I'm Tonya Hall for ZDNet and Tech Republic, and joining me is Priya Vijayarajendran. She is the Chief Technology Officer for Applied AI at IBM. Welcome, Priya.
Thank you, Tonya. Pleasure to meet you.
Absolutely. You're quoted as saying, "I live and breathe data." What % of companies are now data-driven?
Which is why it's exciting because we are at a stage where every enterprise company has tremendous volume of data, and data is of different variety, structured and unstructured data. So I know, as a matter of fact, less than 5% of unstructured data is taken advantage by every enterprise company. So that gives us immense opportunity to be truly data-driven, make business decisions based on data. So, which is one of the reasons I said I live and breathe data, because we are able to change how we made business in the past to today.
How should businesses actually look at data? Are they acting as if it's an actual asset?
That's a brilliant question, because we all have heard data is an asset term quite frequently and practically in every article we read. I mean, companies initially used to do it as a managed capability inside the IT organizations. We had systems, we had softwares we licensed with other companies, and data became a thing which we acquired over a period of time. Now, enterprise organizations are starting to realize that data is becoming an asset. What I mean by asset is they're trying to see that we have something inside our organization which we haven't used it. So this is something they don't buy, they don't license, they don't train people with, they already have, which is pretty much their digital footprint of their business. So instead of having somebody else come and train and program your software, you can know about your digital footprint of your business with your own data. So it's a tremendous asset, and mining it and observing it and learning from the data is must do for every enterprises.
Organizations are collecting a lot of data, but it seems like the problem is what to do with it. So how do you navigate the data to find out where the dominant values exist?
Yeah, again, a myriad of things happens in the data world. I mean, as much we say data, there is a lot of regulations and securities and constraints in about what data can be shared and what has to be securely stored, because many times we talk about data, sometimes the data is your own enterprise data, like the billings and stuff, but sometimes it's our customers' data where I have to preserve and guard Tonya's and Priya's and every Tom's and others' data. So companies have to have a governance and a model about what type of data they can take advantage of, right? And so there are a lot of data, all the way from data representation to data storage and data access and security. A lot of these things are basic fundamentals of data. Now, on top of it, it's almost like sleuthing, which is what I love about applying emerging technologies on top of data, because you're actually finding a little bit of unknowns. If you have known what exists in the data, then you can pretty much go and look for things in that data. But then you're trying to find patterns. You're trying to make data patterns emerge out of the data. So in the past, data scientists have assembled a set of data and try to make queries or try to apply basic statistical model to see that what comes out of it. So it is not a pure technology space. That's something we often misunderstand. It's a lot of subject matter expertise comes into line. A procurement data, which is about what you're buying and supply chain patterns, cannot be just geeked out by a data scientist. You need a subject matter expert to understand and imply. So that's when the applied technology concepts come into place. To unleash the discovery elements of data, we need subject matter experts, discovery experts, and the real technologists to form a multidisciplinary cohort and to be able to find the best data set that they can actually leverage.
How has the software changed? I've heard you say in many cases it's invisible. What do you mean by that?
So dissolving or disambiguating the layers. I mean, I've had great mentors who talk about it even almost a decade before. That time probably it didn't make sense to me, because we all have seen software. So this has been 22nd year I've been working on enterprise computing, and we've seen software. So we talk about a solid infrastructural layer where we need big software, big hardware to host our systems, and then we have a database where all these huge volumes of data get stored. And then we have application layer, which usually the functional people and others talk about general ledger, or talk about billing, or talk about a supply chain, or talk about marketing. They define these objects. This is how I want these objects to be represented. And then we have the UI layer, which talks about taking this, right? And UI has transformed quite a bit based on the needs and taste of people, but oftentimes we didn't realize we have the power to change how the business operation. We don't need 6 general ledgers for a single company just because somebody configured it that way. So we now have the capability, because the data doesn't have to be stored in one way. So the programming paradigms of how we build software as a 3-layered architecture is definitely changing, because a lot of concepts have become nimble and viable for us, because we are now using a lot of microservices architecture, not because somebody invented what APIs meant. It's also because a pocket of data gives us certain insights, and we definitely want to make it just like a Lego, reusable and referenceable at any point in time in our entire, let's say, compute block, right? So it allows us to change it. So we don't need this typical 3-layered type of things. I'm not saying that becomes irrelevant, but we can actually make more amendments to this. We can make it more modernized right now. So definitely the way to rethink. So that's why I called by dissolving the layers. So these barriers of, this is an application layer, this is a database layer, this is a system layer, this is a UX layer, is slowly dissolving. Actually, we are able to call things much better than before.
It seems like the golden ticket, or the big question, is how do you monetize data? What's the answer, Priya?
So there's been many concepts about what can people do with data. I mean, hands down, it's going to enable enterprises to be much more smarter, intelligent, or cognitive, so to speak. But in terms of it, data as a marketplace, as becoming a theme, actually, we have known a lot of companies, who's actually monetizing out of the data. I mean, we know some of the big technology players who actually do this, but regardless of it, brilliant examples. Let's take Nike, Under Armour. MyFitnessPal used to be a calorie counting software, so it got integrated to a sports and apparel industry, whom we never thought it can go very well. But now, if you think about it, all this data that you and me logged about our food patterns and our jogging and our running patterns actually has become an asset. Now they are monetizing it in terms of knowing you, how to serve you better, in terms of what products you might like or what's your lifestyle. So they've added a different stream of a product idea, which gathered the data into personalizing and contextualizing to their customers. So it's a indirect channel to monetize this particular thing. So the propensity for you to buy something because they know so much about you through the other data that it's been part of the app, it's tremendous. So companies do data to generate new revenue stream directly and indirectly. Sometimes data like weather as a good example. So IBM has weather company. And in order for you to understand, will you have a disruption in your supply chain process? Let's say we both procure materials from Vietnam or Indonesia, and there is a natural calamity which is happening. So weather is an important information. So you're able to mine this information, saying that are there some trading delays? Are there some weather disruption? Are there some natural calamities disruption? So you know for sure the order which you made it for 250K, it's going to be delayed for 4 weeks. You can avoid the disruption. So this is becoming data as an asset. It's a classic example that I could think of.
You've told me that you're passionate about bringing AI to the next generation's workforce. So how do we do that so it's accessible to people of all skill levels?
Yeah, and I go through this because I have a teenager who's actually starting to embrace emerging technology trends. So, you know, back several years ago, learning Java and JavaScript became the thing for the kids, right? So now we can't wait for the current generation, Generation Z, as they say it, for to learn and know about AI, even though they have been using AI already for several years. I mean, people use Snapchat, Facebook, we use visual recognition, we use actually spam email spam filter in Google. So they've been exposed to these capabilities, but not knowing what truly is AI. How do you classify a toxic comment in an unstructured data? How do you recognize anomalies in an image? So all these concepts of what is possible out there needs to be educated to. They can't wait till they come to a graduate school or into a college to be able to know it. So exposing them to this early concepts of AI, so where their representation or their point of view on how they could take it and think about solution is very, very important, because AI is as good as how we are able to shape up good solutions on top of it. It needs diversification. It needs a lot of representation of different data. So there's a selfish motivation to that as well. But it's very important that we expose to our next generation. And also they train themselves to be a capable workforce when they are joining the rest of us in solving real world problems actually.
This seems to be a time of emerging and converging all technologies, right? Machine learning, artificial intelligence, IoT, voice, machine vision, mass data collection, and robotics. When you look at data, okay, when you look out over the next decade, what big problems do you think might be solved? What big problems must we be on guard or to try to prevent?
So there is a consciousness among both consumer and enterprise community that all these emerging technology trends should be used for good, right? Because you're so right. I mean, that's a tag, a word cloud of all the emerging trends, what you just said out there. So there's a very conscious and ethical decision by both the enterprises and consumer community to make sure we use things for, because it's very powerful in terms of what you're able to discover and unleash, right? So some of the common problems which I'm absolutely passionate and to represent, IBM's moonshot has been on the healthcare industry. I mean, I even just read an article from DeepMind, which is from Google yesterday, about how they are able to detect a specific cancer using visual recognition. These are things that we haven't not been able to do, even with the technology advancements we have in the medical industry. We have fantastic instruments. We've been getting data because people are now aware of how it's important to share my gene mutation versus somebody in South Africa, where we could collect this data to be able to do this. So healthcare is for greater humanity. It's tremendous in terms of the impact we can make. And also, I personally have known a high schooler. She was in junior year. She was trying to apply AI to solve to detect water quality problems in California. Think about the larger societal problems, which in spite of having socioeconomic conditions, which has been good in certain parts of our country, and also capable people and money and all those things, we still haven't been able to solve. So technology is going into areas where we have never thought. IoT, you said, you thinking of drones to deliver medicines in near emergency situations. I mean, these are things that we absolutely want to change the world. But this things excites me on the consumer side of the things. On the enterprise side of the things, enterprises are being bold after several years. They are actually unconventionally thinking. I mean, you've seen not just the emerging trends, big pivot moments in larger enterprises. They are actually changing their business directions. They are going from B2B to B2B to C actually. So such major moments. So it's giving a very bold directions to enterprises. They feel like they can actually change. It feels them they can discover their customers much better, and it allows them to redefine their businesses. So that's what I like about those things as well, be it several points in their margin or changing their entire business, or actually coming with a very humanized version of serving the customers. So it's all for good, actually.
Priya, thank you so much for shedding some light on the work that you're doing with artificial intelligence at IBM. If somebody wants to connect with you, how can they go about doing that?
Um, so connecting people, absolutely, I love doing it. So feel free to reach me out in LinkedIn. I'm also active in Twitter. People can reach out to me, and more than happy to discuss on the topics and learn.
Thanks again. That was Priya Vijayarajendran. She is the Chief Technology Officer for Applied AI at IBM. And if you guys want to find more of my interviews, you can do that right here on ZDNet or Tech Republic, or maybe find me on the internet by going to tonyahall.net. I have links to all my social channels. Thanks for watching.